Do we need to do a roll call up front or? All right, let's just go right on to the approval of the minutes. Can I get an approval? I have a motion and a second. Do you want to do roll call there?
Sure.
Go ahead.
All right, Bill Senhol.
Yes.
Adam Fisher.
Yes.
Paul Kapla.
Yes.
Mike O'Reilly.
Yes.
Ken Bargander.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right. Identify potential conflicts. Any conflicts, anybody? Okay. Citizen comments. Anybody you want to from the gallery? All right. Report on selection of Marshfield Parcel for Certified Sites program. Yeah.
Is this on? Yes, it is. Okay, this is a project I'm so excited about, so I'm really glad that we can report out on this. In July, WEDAC, which is the Economic Development Corp for the state, decided they were going to do a pilot project on certifying sites in Wisconsin. And certified sites has been around for many, many years, but then it's been very expensive to certify any sites that you have, and these are industrial sites, and a very lengthy process. And then during COVID, it kind of fell off the face of the earth, and there's a lot of communities that don't have a lot of land available. So they decided to relaunch this and do a pilot program, and the state is picking up a lot of the cost, and they decided that this year they would do 3 communities that had some land available, and we had to fill out a request for information, a quite lengthy process, and we had to pull it together pretty quickly. So kudos goes out to Nick and Steve and their team, and Stephen, and just many others that put this all together. We all had to reach out to partners and get this submitted. And luckily, we were one of the 3 communities chosen. And the new 124 acres that we have, that is part of Yellowstone, we carved out a 47.5 acre piece that we would actually certify, just because it would be easier and quicker. And then we can also say that other land is available. So they're equally excited from the state that somebody in central Wisconsin, I think, was chosen, and that we have this type of acreage available. So now what do we get out of this? We get a site selection company that's going to come and work with us in person. They're going to come, they're going to review the site. They're going to meet our partners. They want to work with people. They want to work on developing some marketing pieces for us. And they want to show that Marshfield's a great location. What is it a great location for? So they're going to help us identify which industries would best fit in Marshfield and what are our selling points. You know, we all think we know them. Maybe they've changed over the years. You know, maybe we need to adjust how we're marketing the community. But anyway, I'm just really excited because this is being the pilot, one of the pilot communities. It's going to bring us a lot of notoriety, I think, in the state. And I think it will help us develop and sell that land pretty quickly, and not to mention the additional free marketing we're going to get out of this process too. So September 14th is when they're coming to the community. I don't have the schedule of time or anything or how many people can meet, but I would love to see some of you on EDB be involved in at least in a portion of that. The nice thing is they're going to educate us too on how we should be promoting ourselves and the land, things that we can be doing better, different, and all of that. So happy to entertain any questions about that.
Question. Good. Who are all the partners? You referenced partners, but who are they?
Yeah, well, the main things are city and city staff, because we had to develop maps for that piece of land. We, from Nick's standpoint, we had to let them know where we currently have utilities, how close to the site is it. You know, Charter and some of the other folks that can supply technology to the site, how close are their lines? So we really had to pull all the people in for all the questions that they were asking. If you've ever seen a request for information, I'm sure you guys all have for other things, but when it comes to projects, especially big projects, they're very long. There are a lot of pages, and they usually have a week turnaround. And so you have to pull all of this information together and all these maps together. So, you know, I relied on Steve to reach out to his team, Dan Connect and Stephen, and we had maps being done. And so they were all the partners that really, not one of us could have done it alone. We all had to come together and do it very quickly and very short staffed. So I really appreciate the
One follow-up.
Yeah.
You said they're going to give us some marketing advice on the property, but also as a community. Did I hear you say that correctly?
Well, go ahead.
No.
Is that the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from their standpoint, this SSG company, they're called, they're out of Texas, and they also have a location in South Carolina. And 90% of what they deal with are industries looking to build or relocate or expand. So 10% is working with communities. So they know what site selectors are looking for. So they're going to come here and personally guide us onto, if we had to pay for this for a site selector to come to the community and that force, it would be a lot of money. But this is all things that they're going to come because they know that you have to promote, you have to sell the community, not just the parcel of land. You have to have workforce or programs in place. And, when you talk about workforce, because I know somebody's going to bring that up, we're all hurting for workforce, but this is all over the country. So it doesn't matter if you're Texas or South Carolina or here. But what we do promote is what makes us strong as a community, what type of other industries are here. We've often said this, if we were to attract a company that needed a lot of water, we might not be able to sustain that, at least for a while. So we have to look at the companies that we can support here and what makes sense for our area. So that's what I meant by the community part of it.
Yeah.
Thanks. You had mentioned that you mapped out 47 acres.
Mhm.
Is that going to be marketed as a single plot, or would that be subdivided?
I mean, the nice thing about it is, and they were excited about this too, as you guys will remember, when Mill Creek was done, we put the infrastructure in, which was great. But now you had all the roads in, so there were some bigger parcels available, but you also were landlocked because you already had the roads in. So you have to balance how quickly people want projects to happen, but also how you can be adaptive to what they need. So I think having the 47 acres as a blank slate, as long as we know how close utilities are and what it would take to extend them, how quickly could we get a road in there if somebody came along with a project? We're more prepared to handle that. And if we need to divide that parcel, we can divide it. But when I ask the state what they're typically looking for, first of all, you can't even participate in this program unless you have 20 plus acres, contiguous acres. And they said a lot of people are requesting 40 to 100 acres nowadays because they want room for expansion or whatever. So I think having that 40 plus is good. And we can always say, if you need more, if you want another piece of that, we can get working on that for you. Bring your friends, right?
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Discuss prospects for future development of new single-family lots.
Thanks, Bill. Well, as I put in the memo, the board here has been talking about housing for a while, the need for more housing, more lots available for single-family development to be able to attract and retain people who might be coming here for work, companies trying to look for places where their employees will be able to live. And you need to have a certain inventory of single-family lots in order to be in the game, so to speak, and we've been below that. We've been criticized for that. So I know that historically, with a couple of past studies and some action plans, this body's been supportive of more housing. We did get the Daniels subdivision going. We can talk about that a little bit in a while. We will. It hasn't been coming along quite as fast as we'd like to see, but there are permits being taken out and homes going up. But the reason I put this on the agenda was at the last council meeting, might have been a special meeting actually a couple weeks ago. The council voted against a development at the 21st and Washington area. It would have been 55 single-family lots. I call it the Green Tree Project. It's actually in Green Acres, but Green Tree is a construction company. The council had a lot of reasons for that. They had a good discussion. I mean, certainly the infrastructure bids coming in $600,000 over our budget was a negative. A lot of discussion about where this type of housing would fit into what we need. The values, the construction cost has been going up steadily because of inflation and other reasons. So what we once were hoping would be able to be built for 200 and something thousand, we're now being told it's going to be over 300 just to build it. So the questions come up, is that affordable housing? workforce housing, if you will. What are we trying to create? And I think the council kind of wanted to hit the pause button. And part of the reason was I think they wanted to look at true needs. They sort of feel like maybe the project would be getting better infrastructure bids if we bid it out during the winter when contractors' plates are not as full. City engineer and the public works director tell me that the way inflation is going these days, it's not probably going to get much better. Regardless, we only had 2 bidders this time. But my reason for bringing this up is not to rehash whether or not the Green Tree Construction Development Agreement was a good one or not. I certainly appreciate council's concerns, but really, where do we want to go in the future? Where does this body, where does the council want to go? We need to start having those conversations. What type of project are we trying to develop? What are we looking for? Is it more on the lower end? The first-time home buyers? Is it some other part of the market that we feel we're missing? What types of, price points are we looking at? Type of home? There was a lot of discussion in closed session by the council about those very issues, and council will have to wrestle with this first and foremost. But this body being involved in housing for the past 5 or 6 years and wanting to see a takeoff, I thought it would be good to have a conversation at this level about where do you think we take it next? Where do we head? What types of, goals and objectives should we have in the area of housing? And how do we get there?
Good question. So I think my first observation is I think what we need is more, period. Doesn't matter high end, low end, affordable, not affordable, we need more. If you, there's clearly a shortage of single family residences. It is affecting businesses here. They are not able to attract new people to town. And if they do attract a new employee, there's no place for them to live. So they end up living outside of the city and having to commute in from 30 to 45 minutes in order to be able to get new jobs here. Essentially what that does, that's a really nice short-term stopgap for those employers. The reality is that employee turns over really fast because they frankly get tired of driving 30 to 45 minutes. So reality is more, period. High end creates its own demand characteristics. There are plenty of people who would like to move into the community that would see a high end home as an opportunity. If they don't, the people from within the city that would move up from lesser value homes would create holes in the whole infrastructure and really allow backfill into all of the levels of price points for affordable housing. This is a really serious problem. Certainly the clinic wrestles with it every day, but outside of the clinic, I've talked to manufacturers. I give John Park an example. He, not this last year, but the year before, he hired 15 new people. Not a single one of them could live in the city of Marshfield or close by because there were no houses available for those professional positions that pay quite well. So all of those people ended up being commuters. Are they all still here? I don't know. I should call him and ask him, see what his turnover characteristics are. But certainly, he's not the only one fighting with this issue. So it really comes down to just need more units, period, in order to be able to support the housing shortage that we have here. Gordon, do you have, I see you just joined us. Do you have some input into the clinic's take on the level of housing availability here in town?
I think housing's tough still today. There's not a lot of inventory. And, it's hard to find stuff. Some of you know, I just sold my home. I had 4 offers. The folks who got it are thankful that they won out because they've been looking forever and they couldn't find anything. And so, yeah, and it's a wide range of stuff. It's housing from everything from our frontline to our physicians.
Yeah. So that is the same story I'm hearing everywhere. So.
Yeah, and I like what you said, Bill, about the fact that there's movement. And, some people use the phrase life cycle housing. I don't know if you hear that much anymore. I used to hear that a little bit. Whether it really doesn't matter. I mean, you have people who are first-time home buyers, and their families are growing, they need more, and then their careers are growing. Eventually, they're going to be empty nesters. Maybe they want to scale back. What you want is homes to be out there for people to buy, and that frees up those homes for other people to purchase and move in and build up the ladder. So, I mean, I think creating opportunity is probably the biggest thing that we want to do. And maybe we do get hung up too much on some of the specifics. I know one thing about the affordability issue. You know, they keep telling you cannot build a home anymore for really under $300,000. So the idea that everybody is going to be able to be a first-time home buyer when they're 22 years old or whatever, it's just not going to happen. So maybe the study we did a few years ago that talked about we need to create more new housing in the range of, it was 150 to 200 at the time or something. I mean, those days are bypassed.
Long past
Yeah,
this.
they don't exist.
Yeah. So reality is with the way financing goes in the real estate market, and the level of wages that we actually have in the community here, 300,000 is certainly not a big house anymore. Reality, I mean, I can run the numbers backwards while we're sitting here, but the vast majority of the families in this community can afford certainly north of 250. So it is this is a big issue. So what it is doing right now is forcing a lot of people to live in multifamily. Multifamily, we've added a lot of units in the community here, and thank God we did, because otherwise things would be far worse than they are right now. But reality is the number one thing really holding back the expansion of the community and people wanting to come here in the future, or people wanting to expand their businesses here in the community right now, is the lack of housing. So I agree with you. This is something that we need to be working on and making sure that we're moving forward with, because if we stop right now, it will get much worse really quick. The number of houses availability that are out there is at certainly was at a low 6 months ago. It's gotten a little bit better since then, but if you're somebody looking to move into this community, there really just isn't a lot of good options available, right? So, other questions or comments?
Yeah, the other only comment I have is, and I don't have a good feel for it, is how much housing is vacant in the community that the condition is what people don't want. I mean, there's sometimes buyers who don't want to do the renovations, but is there stuff in that, under 250 range that could there be programs to help revitalize, update, that could fill in some of those spaces from a housing perspective?
So that too is a really good idea. Certainly you can add a lot of value to the tax base in a hurry here quickly by just providing methodologies for people to update their houses, incentives for them to do that. So when I first moved to town here 15 years ago, they just built the new 100 units right across from Menards. And what happened at that point is that took away all the lower end rentals. Those people moved out and moved up into the newer rentals. And we saw a real glut of open lower end rentals in the community. We've added, 600 units over the last couple of years here.
Pretty close to that.
We have not seen that happen here at all. Those houses are all full, as far as I can tell. We haven't seen any, and certainly none of the customers that we have had any problems renting their lower end units at this point. So that tells you that there is certainly some desperation out there for people just to find a place to live. That have certainly, if they've taken a job here and they suddenly move here and find out there's no place to live, how long are they going to stay if they're not living in what they consider is an appropriate level of house for the income that they have?
Well, and just one more thing real quick. You make a really good point, Gordon, about are there homes that need to be fixed up? They're decent homes, but they're going to cost a lot in terms of repair, renovation, whatever. I don't know where we get data on that, but I think that the housing, this is just me personally, I think the housing issue is not one that has a silver bullet. We've been talking a lot about the need for more single family lots, and we clearly do. We clearly don't have enough single family lots for what we need on, to be able to have as a supply. But certainly if there's programs we can create. Now, I know we've got one for the very low income, where you fix the roof or whatever, and, it's a zero interest loan you pay back when you sell or when the person passes, if that's what happens. But the ones where, the home is in decent shape, the people aren't, desperately low in income, but the idea that you're going to be able to spend, $40,000 to make the repairs to make that a quality home again is daunting, and they may not want to get into it. They may sit it out. They may see it on the market and say, if I had the skills myself, I'd do it, but I don't. And, and then the home doesn't get the improvement that it needs to be a quality house going forward. So there's probably a lot of pieces to this puzzle. There probably are.
Yeah.
Steve, the one thing that I've always wondered in this space is, you got the new market tax credits. I know the Y's taken advantage of it. We've taken advantage of it in other communities. I think they can also be used in single family housing. I just don't know if that's potentially a program the city could help with. Maybe some of those homes, you end up with a forgivable loan in 7 years, and so it could potentially provide some capital as well. I just don't know enough about it. Maybe Bill does.
Ken, you want to comment before
Is Gordon done?
I think so. Gordon, you're done? Yes.
Okay, thanks. I don't want to be a negative Nelly. I'm just going to tell you some things that my observations, okay? We talked about this shortage of lots and shortage of high-end homes, okay? And obviously, we all know we developed 23 lots over at the Daniels subdivision, and I live near there, okay? So I drive through there, I see that often, okay? So according to what I read here, we have 14 of those lots sold, correct? Okay. There's 3 homes being built in various stages right now, okay? Some of these homes have been started in the wintertime, and they're still not complete, okay? That leaves 11 sold lots. And I drove through there yesterday or the day before, and there are some workers at all 3 houses that are being built at this time, okay? And Ashley's not here to answer this, but my question is, the 11 lots that are sold, there's nothing going on. There's nobody digging any foundations. There's nothing going on there. So we hear there's such demand, and why during the prime time, summertime, why construction hasn't been started on these homes? I can't answer it, I guess. I suspect it's a wait and see approach because of the cost of, because due to inflation of the cost of materials and labor. And I think that's, I don't know, the council people here can correct me. I think that's why the council, kind of put the Green Acres development on hold, because they're kind of a wait and see approach. So I guess if there's so much demand, reiterating, why are nothing going on much at the Daniels subdivision or development? I don't, if anyone here can chime in on this and enlighten me and the rest of us why this is not happening. From what I hear, there should be a lot going on there, and there's not.
That's a good question, Ken. And I do think that the slow build out on Daniels affected the council. I probably didn't say that in my comments, but they noticed that the build out's not happening the way everybody had hoped. I think it may be good for the next meeting to have an update on the status of what's going on with some of those lots and walk through what what the prospects are for how soon development construction is going to occur. Having said that, I think staff talks a little bit about this among ourselves, that whether it's now or somewhere soon, we are going to need more lots because development is going to happen, and right now it doesn't exist. So maybe people look at the remaining lots in Daniels and maybe they're nervous right now about mortgage interest rates or inflationary costs and whatever, but at some point we're going to need to have a greater inventory of people to be able to look at buying and building. Otherwise, they're going to end up buying and building in the town of McMillan or somewhere else. But I get your point loud and clear.
So now, getting back to Gordon's comment about low-income tax credits. So there's a specific model that's out there for doing low-income housing projects that includes low-income tax credits. There's two different versions of it based off of the income levels of the individuals that are in those, that are targeted to be in those facilities. The process for doing one of those projects is fairly long. Usually the lead up to doing one of those takes about 2 years to complete, and it involves competitive bidding for those tax credit funds. And it also involves applications to, for example, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Chicago is usually an involved party in those. I believe we have some of those coming up in our future, in the not too distant future, and the city's TIF extension dollars will probably play really big into those, and we definitely need to get somebody working on those projects because they are very long tailed. They take a long time to get in place, and they are competitive. So you have to have elements of the project that give you a scoring advantage because every other city in the state of Wisconsin is doing the same thing. One of the things I think we got to keep in perspective here in Marshfield is it's competitive for everything. It's competitive for housing. It's competitive for jobs. It's competitive for all elements along the way. And sometimes I think we forget that we're in a competition and we try to live in a vacuum and do things on our own schedule. Reality is sometimes competition drives the schedule instead of what we would like to do along the way. So this is one of those areas in particular. It's a competitive bid situation. We need to start early because usually when you're in the competitive bid situation, you don't get it the first time around, but you may the second time around. That means that's a full year. So these are items that need to be worked on and have some input into and some ideas, and a well-defined project with a developer who's familiar with doing it really makes the difference in these projects. But they can be, especially in a community like this where we haven't done one in ages, would be very, very helpful to help relieve some of the demand for affordable housing.
Well, maybe that's a good point. We need to broaden our focus as to what we're looking at. And the program you're talking about, Bill, is one of those options.
Mm-hmm.
I think coming out of the 5 years that we focused, and it was roughly 5 years that we focused on multifamily, and you're right, we got several hundred apartment units built as a result, which was wonderful. We needed them. But our focus has really been two things. One, this small subdivision of our own, where we could, get the write down on the cost because of the city being involved, and that became Daniel's addition. And then the other one where we used mixed-use TIF district, which is an allowable thing in state law. If you have a solid industrial commercial component, you can get residential factored in, and that's what we were looking at 21st and Washington. So we probably haven't looked at some of the programs that you're talking about, and I know they're out there. They take time and effort and resources, but maybe we need to open the field a little bit in terms of options.
Literally, what it requires is somebody to identify a potential site for one of these, and then go drag one of the. There's actually quite a few companies that specialize in developing these with an attractive plan, and if you have the infrastructure set up to be able to do the project, it really works. It is a good way of adding affordable housing to so. Yeah, Mike.
Thank you. I think, Bill, you had mentioned that these were low-income tax credits.
Mm-hmm.
And he had mentioned earlier that the Y had used these tax credits. Are we talking about the same thing?
No, they're close.
Okay.
Similarly structured plans, but so the one for low-income housing, I believe they call them 4% and 9%. There's two different sets of tax credits that go hand in hand to do one of those projects. What the Y used, it's a different type of tax credit. It's administered through CDFI. They received the tax credits primarily in support of getting childcare equipment. But they are somewhat related, and there are projects where you might get them all, but I don't know that we have any of those types of projects. Yes.
Well, I think we could certainly get some consulting help into the mix, but the question for this body is still going to come down to, and the council obviously as well as the governing body, but is going to be, what are we trying to create? What is it we're after? What market, what type of homes, what's the niche we have to fill? Because anybody who's going to come and help us is going to be asking that question pretty early.
Gabrielle?
The other thing that I was thinking about is maybe attacking it from the opposite side. Maybe trying to figure out if there's a way to work with developers to have the price decreased in some way, shape, or form. If there's any incentives we can provide developers to do something like this. I think the point that you guys are making of the trickle down effect is very important to pay attention to, because we could focus on low income and then not impact the higher income population. But if you impact the higher impact population, you can impact the lower impact population as well. So maybe taking a look at it from the opposite perspective and saying, how can we help encourage the development for the higher income population? Maybe it's a matter of, 20 grand or something that's limiting somebody's ability to build a house because the prices are going up so much. Just a thought.
I concur with what you said 100%. Reality is if you start at the upper end, you do have multiple steps. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, it just seems to me a little bit too that, affordable and brand new don't always go together.
Not good. I don't think.
Think back to where you were when you started out in your 20s.
Yeah.
And the first house you bought probably wasn't brand new.
No.
And so I agree. I mean, there's a trickle down that has to occur. I'm not saying you build only for the higher end, but I think given where costs are at, you certainly have to, I think, start there. And maybe it's a question of making lots available as opposed to houses available, or some combination.
So I agree. Actually, I think we really need to attack this at both ends, primarily by providing lots for more expensive, newer homes. And if at the same time the low income tax credit properties are still new, yet they do provide housing for people with lower means along the way. But if you're trying to build without tax credits into the affordable realm, you're not going to make it. It's just not going to happen. So obviously you can buy down the cost per unit by going multifamily. I think everybody in the room probably thinks that single family is the next best thing to slice bread, and it's a good way for individuals to build their own personal net worths. But right now, the only way people can afford to live is affordably is in multifamily. So you're seeing in other communities, if you drive around the state of Wisconsin, a lot of what's being built is in the multifamily range, because that's really the way you can impact the ability for people to live. Yeah, circling back to what Gabrielle said earlier, if we can attract higher end individuals here, they spend more money. Economically, from an economic development standpoint, those are the people we want. Now, don't get me wrong, we want everybody, but if we can attract more, it has a much larger effect on, besides just the trickle down of the individual houses, it has they spend more money. So why not invite them? Go ahead, Ann.
I would concur with that. And I think we have to also think when you say that, there's a trickle down effect in everything, not just housing. There's a trickle down effect once someone starts going to a certain store to buy something. For lack of a better word, it's called peer pressure. People follow the crowd. And when you bring people in with a higher end, it's just a reality. You're going to bring in the workforce. You're going to bring in a lot of other people who are going to spend money as well. So I think not just a trickle-down effect in the housing, it's a trickle-down effect in just basic economics. People are going to spend money because money is coming into the community. I really do agree with Gabrielle. I think when you really, I appreciate the idea, and I agree, more housing, but when you start to focus on bringing some higher end homes into the community, it's going to free up demand current homes that are now in the market. And when we can push those out and hopefully create some incentive programs, I would like to think we can do that. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do affordable housing alongside that, but to play the devil's advocate, you're going to hear people say, not in my backyard. They're immediately going to become concerned because they're going to say, how does this impact my property value? And that's where I think the city needs to get better at communicating with our constituency the need for all housing, because it's easy to say that, but when you're on the opposite end and you have a house valued at, let's say, 450,000, 500,000, and you got a 3 to 350 house coming in, the person is automatically going to call their alderperson and go, I don't want this in my backyard. So we have to understand that, and we have to have a plan to communicate why we still need it in the.
And there are certain places where certain developments aren't going to be popular and they're not going to happen. Some of you are around when the pocket, I think it was called cottage homes or pocket homes or whatever, were being proposed in that area along Lincoln. And there was a negative outcry. And I remember thinking to myself and talking to a couple of staff people, it's probably a very good project. It's probably not the right spot for it. So even you know, the differences of the types of housing we want to see occur, you've always got to find the place where it fits in, to Adam's point, to where it's going to be compatible with the surrounding area as much as possible. Here's my thought: is we're not going to solve this today, but the council made a decision, and they had some good reasons for it. We can certainly hit the pause on a plan like that. What I don't want to do is hit the pause button on the topic, because the topic is here and the topic is not going anywhere. So I think we need to come up with a comprehensive strategy for what are we trying to do with the resources we have. And the resources we have are limited. TIF District 13 gives us the possibility to use tax increment in the area where that Green Acres one was discussed. We have some other programs that Bill is mentioning. There's also probably other opportunities I'm not thinking of, but it requires us to kind of come up with a plan and approach between this body and the council, and others might be interested. What are we looking to do with the bullets that we have?
If I may.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to say, Steve, is I don't think the council, and this is just from my opinion, I don't think the council put a pause button on housing. I think they put a pause button on that project.
That's what I meant. I didn't say
I just want to communicate that, because I think people could maybe mishear what you said and go, well, the council wanted to put a pause on housing. I don't feel that way. I didn't get that sense, but I think there were a lot of issues about that specific project.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. In fact, I meant to say exactly what you just said, Adam, that the council wanted to put the pause on that project, and I just wanted to make sure we don't put the pause on the topic, because, Karen can tell you, workforce, huge issue right now for so many employers. There's always other things going on that are significant happening, but housing is not going to get better on its own.
So really, we do need to kind of develop plans that attack these issues. So where do we start as it relates to those?
Well, we have the 2019 study, and 2019 doesn't sound like that long ago, but when you think of what's happened in the economy and COVID and everything else, maybe it is a long time ago, as far as looking back on some of those recommendations as to whether the environment has changed. I'd like to see us get a limited amount of outside help to try and feel our way through this, but they're going to need updated statistics, they're going to need updated information to work from, and they're going to need some guidance they can pull out of bodies like this one as to where we want to go. So, I'd be willing to share that with the council as well. Maybe there's a joint effort. In a minute, we're going to talk about West 2nd Street redevelopment plan, and I think that needs to be a joint effort. Maybe this is something similar, where you pull together people from different bodies and sit in a room and close the door and say, okay, what do we have? What do we need to do? What resources do we have to accomplish it? And see what comes from that. I really do. I'm very much a believer in that type of approach when you can do it. You don't always get consensus, but you get some good discussion and hopefully a little bit of direction.
Other questions, concerns on this specific topic right now? All right, so let's move on to the West 2nd Street. And actually, they're kind of integrated because there's a lot of residential involved in the 2nd Street project.
I'm suddenly aware of at least a couple of potential projects that people are interested in. And there may be others. There's certainly a lot of interest in that West 2nd Street corridor area now. And I think we engage with those people. I think we engage with those people and see if there's a possibility of getting something done. I mean, there's some real opportunity there. Beyond that, I've thought about this. I've looked at it, talked a little bit with Stephen along the way and other staff members. I really think what we need to do is I think we need to get the key stakeholders in a room and talk about this. And so here's what I'm suggesting. We have a TIF district we can create. I mean, certainly we've talked to Ellers. We can do a new downtown TIF district without compromising the one that's, running out its time, TIF District 4. We have a consulting firm in Vanderwall that did a good job for us, worked with many of you who were on the ad hoc committee. They've sent us a proposal. I think I've shared before, they're willing to continue into the implementation phase to help us. Of course, they'd obviously need some idea from us as to where we want to take it on what pace. So we've got resources at our fingertips, but here's what I think we should do. I think we should have a meeting a planning meeting, and I've talked to the city attorney. We can keep this under the radar in terms of being a big public event, as long as it's not a body appointed by the council. It's just, a few people to get together. But I think we need 1 or 2 people from the following entities: council, CDA, EDB, Plan Commission, Mackey, Main Street, staff, and maybe others, maybe a realtor, maybe a developer, maybe a business person, community leader. This add up to maybe 10 to 12 people in total. And sit down and go through the plan, look at what we have, look at the opportunities, look at the phases we can carve out of it. Talk about who would be a project leader. That's one of the things we talked about in these meetings before. Who is going to drive the car? Who's going to drive the ship? I guess you don't drive a ship. That's where I was headed for a minute. I'm not a on the water person, apparently. But who's going to lead the charge? And hopefully we'll get a new development services director soon. I'll update on that. But so we need a project leader. We need a plan of attack. Lay out the resources. Before we just run out and create a TIF district, what would it look like? How far would it go? There's been talk about, should it go across Veterans Parkway, even to that area just to the north? What would who should be involved in the development? How are we going to, portray this? How are we going to publicize it? What are the roles of everybody involved? I mean, CDA, I think we've talked about this before. CDA really has not played a large role in development in this community. They certainly haven't played their statutory role. They've mainly focused on housing. I get why, but I think they're ready to launch off and be part of redevelopment. So get all the things on the board. I'm thinking whiteboard kind of stuff, and come up with a plan. And how are we going to handle inquiries? As we get calls here at city staff, Karen gets somebody interested. Bill, you hear of somebody. How are we going to handle inquiries even as this plan is coming together? Because we don't want to stifle good thoughts, ideas people have to develop. We don't want to put them on the shelf for 2 years and say, well, wait till we have a plan. It'll all be great. And then come up with an action plan of steps as to how to move forward. Then we can talk about when we want Vanderwall or somebody else to help us, because we'll know what we're doing. Then we can talk about engaging our financial advisor in the creation of a TIF district, because they'll know what kind of things we're looking to accomplish and what resources it's actually going to take. That would be my proposal, really just throwing it out there for just your review. You don't necessarily need to take action. If you think I'm on the right track, say yes. If you think I'm off base, tell me you're off base. But would be to get a meeting like this together in the second half of September with about 10 to 12 people from various organizations, no quorums, no concerns about meetings that shouldn't be meetings. Close the door and, so to speak, and lay this all out. Spend 90 minutes, roll up the sleeves and say, it's a good plan. Let's go through it. Let's go through the highlights. Let's go through the possibilities. And what do we want to do? Literally.
So I would certainly agree with the approach. The reality is you hit on it earlier, is you need somebody to drive this one down the road. Because right now I potentially have people who would be interested in some of those properties. So, but are they going to wait forever? So time is of the essence. I would say sooner is better than later.
Yeah, what we have right now is we have all the enthusiasm of a plan that was adopted a couple months ago that is already going to fade a little bit if nobody does anything with it. We basically have a lot of people excited and nobody knowing what their role is and knowing who's leading and where do I fit? I'm on the EDB, I'm on the Plan Commission, I'm on the CDA, where do I fit in? And that hasn't even been close to established yet. So we need an identity and a plan. We're not going to know it all, but we need to have some sense of who the stakeholders are and what we're working toward.
Go ahead.
I think it's a good idea, Steve. I just think time is of the essence because we do need to know who the point person is for this. But I think it's a great idea, but I think the sooner we can put a meeting together to determine who that point person is going to be, it's very important because I don't want to lose traction, and I feel like we already are. And I'm glad to hear there's some excitement and there's some interest, but I'm not seeing anything. And as someone who was very excited about this project, I'm losing. And so I'm going, if I'm losing interest, who else is like, we need to keep this going. We need to keep this at the forefront. So I think time is of the essence. So I will just, the only thing I'll push back on is that the end of September. Let's free up the schedule and let's get it going.
Yeah, hopefully I meant to say the back half of September. I'm just figuring it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks, to get the people on board. You're going to hear people say, oh, so-and-so ought to be coming from this body, but he's on vacation the week of, September 8th or whatever. But yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying.
Snooze, they lose.
Mm-hmm. So would you be the spearheading person?
To set this up? Absolutely.
Get that going?
To be the overall leader, probably not, but but to spearhead getting this group together and starting on a meeting, and even if the group is willing to let me lead it, I'm not trying to guide, but just here are the things we need to talk about tonight, kind of thing. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That'd be good. I'd like to see it move forward. Others? I think you named your poison there.
Okay,
that's good.
Thank you.
Discuss models for development services director position. You've got a long list of people and you're really just trying to struggle to see which one you want to hire at this point.
We're back to workforce availability again, right, Karen?
Uh-huh.
But it's a problem all over every sector, every level of job. It's just hard to find people. But right now, I just want to talk about the issue that came up at the last meeting. Bill, you weren't here. We talked a little bit about the structure, because there was a time earlier in the process when we had somebody who was strong in economic development, but didn't really have the cred, if you will, for the planning and zoning side of this job in terms of overseeing economic development, planning and zoning, and building inspection. So, we didn't move in that person's direction, and we've been trying to work through this ever since. Is the model right? Ultimately, the council would have to decide if the model was going to be changed, and right now we're advertising, so it's an awkward place to have this conversation. But I did do some investigation for you. Here's what I came up with. The 3 cities closest to our size in our area that I went with are Stevens Point, Wisconsin Rapids, and Weston. Weston's a little bit smaller than us. Rapids is about the same size of us, and Point has grown larger than us, obviously, in recent years. All 3 of them have exactly the same model that we do, where there's a different title. In Stevens Point, it's the Community Development Director, same in Rapids. Weston calls theirs Director of Planning and Development Services. In all 3 cases, they have someone who oversees all the functions we're talking about here. Planning and zoning, building inspection, and the economic development function. So I went beyond our immediate area, checked out some others. I have 2 that I want to mention to you at least. River Falls is slightly smaller than Marshfield, but if you know where River Falls is, right near the border with Minnesota, it's growing. It's a growing community. They have an interesting thing. They have a community development director who oversees planning and building inspection. They also oversee economic development manager and city engineer. And I thought, how can you do that? Well, the way they do that is the city planner that the community development director oversees, actually that person oversees building inspection and planning services. So it's not a direct report down below. It's just I oversee the city planner and that person oversees the rest of that half of the equation. And then on the other half, the community development director oversees the economic development manager. And the city engineer, and if you're wondering why the city engineer, it sounds really weird. The thought there, and I actually heard from the person, directly, she left me a long voicemail, is that the city engineer, that function is really important in development. It's important in terms of planning for future roads and future, what we can do on site development. So they thought that department or division should also be part of the equation, along with economic development and planning. You had to get to a bigger city. The smallest city I found that had kind of what I think you were thinking of maybe, or at least what I thought you were thinking of, is West Bend. West Bend's a city of about 30,000 in East Central Wisconsin. They have a scenario where the community development director is over just planning and building inspection. and there's an economic development manager totally apart from that who reports directly to the city administrator. So in that city, which is about 1.5 times our size, they've actually taken the economic development professional out of the equation, made them a totally separate position, reporting directly to the city administrator and not overseen by the community development department. But like I said, by and large, the communities that are our size that I can find have a model very similar to ours. It may look like a lot to ask of one person to oversee 3 functions like economic development, planning, and building inspection, but it's not uncommon. So I just bring this to you as an informational piece. I'd take any questions, but that's what I came up with in doing some checking.
So I've got a quick question. So I don't know what the pay scale is for this position that we have advertised right now, and that's not really relevant, but by splitting it into 2, the job functions would be potentially lower and less involved. By splitting it into 2, could you have 2 cheaper ones that would only be marginally more expensive than the one we're advertising?
I don't know. I mean, if you're adding a staff person, that's always going to be cost. You know, right now, the person we call development services director is the economic development director. So anytime you're adding any position, there's going to be expense, even if the 2 salaries are slightly lower than the 1 salary would be right now. I think if you look at doing that, I mean, you wouldn't be doing it for cost savings. Certainly, you'd be doing it with the idea that the job is too much for one person. Like I said, what we see here, that is the model in most cities of our size, 15 to 20,000. But I get it. I mean, and we saw that very clearly in front of us. I'm not sure if anybody in this room was on I think you were, Karen. We saw this on the interviews we did, that you see people sometimes where they are an economic development professional who's done a little bit less on the planning, zoning, and that side of the equation. So you say to yourself, boy, what if we could get that person and that would be their sole role, and they do it well, and they could interact with city administration and the community development department. Maybe that's a great model. I don't know. There's probably cities talking about it. But it would be more costly because you would be adding a position that we don't have today.
Have we considered maybe having the model that we currently have now where that person does both, but maybe hiring somebody part-time that could be solely dedicated to working any like grunt work that person needs done? I want to say like a secretary of sorts, but that's not really what I'm thinking as much as really being somebody to help drive some of these initiatives that person does not have the ability to. And in that case, then you could not have benefits and those types of things, which would reduce the cost, but maybe like an hourly person who does, 20 hours or so a week type position to help move some of these things along that person won't get to.
That's a really good question, because when Josh was here, the sheer number of items that we had him working on were not capable of being. So, I mean, from the perspective of having literally somebody who has a high enough level of understanding to be able to be the legwork person is probably not a bad thing. I know we struggled with that in the past. If you look at our strategic plan that we have, we were only looking at tackling 2, 3, or at most 4 items on the list, which was quite long, because frankly, there just wasn't enough labor available to do the tasks associated with moving each one of those items forward.
I've never thought of anything like that before. It's an interesting prospect.
I think part of it too, and this is just from my own personal experience I'm speaking, but there's a market that's untapped right now, people I think who want to work part-time. There's a lot of people like myself who have a job running my own business, but I do have some capacity to do those types of things. I just cannot commit to a full-time position. So I think there's a market of part-time position people that or even somebody who is a mom. She wants to be able to be home when her kids are home, but she has a couple hours during the day who, could do this type of work. So it was just a thought that, maybe we could expand in that way versus another full-time.
Good points. I will tell you this. I know from talking with Josh, and I don't mean to speak for him, but, I think a lot of people look at his position and they think that the most important part of it is economic development, grow the community. That's what it's about. And yet, he would tell me sometimes that, with the planning and zoning and overseeing building inspection and those kind of things, that it's hard to dedicate the amount of time to economic development that you'd like to. So there's a little disconnect there, and it does pose a challenge that at least makes you think of things that produce these kind of conversations.
Adam?
Thank you. One, I'm actually not surprised, one that kind of brought this up at the last meeting, but I'm not surprised you came back and said that most communities have this model. But I also think we need to constantly be looking to the future and asking the question, will this continue to be the model in the next 5-10 years? And I also think right now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but I believe you even said this at a council meeting once, that the market is kind of dictating positions, and some people are wanting the position at the same pay but less. I believe you said that at a council meeting. And so from one of the recruiters that they were telling you that sometimes they want you to look at the job description and go, well, this is too much. This is one of those positions that I look at and go, are we putting too much in one job description? Because I look at the management oversight and the unique skills needed to do economic development, and I don't always know if they match up. I think Josh was great at doing it and juggling all that, but he was just one person. And so I think we need to start thinking innovatively on how do we hire this person, but how do we create the support, create another position where we maximize economic development? Because if in a previous conversation, we're talking about housing and we can't hit the pause button, we need more. That means we need a point person to champion that. Right now, I see that probably being someone within the city or an economic development position. We need that person. And is that going to be the development services director position? And if it is, how are we going to then create support for him or her, to offset some of the management requirements they have? I just look at this and go, we are throwing so much at one person that I think we need to start thinking outside the box. Now, I don't expect us to make a decision today, maybe even 6 months from now, but I think this is an evolving conversation that we need to have on this model, because if we really want to do economic development well and with excellence, I think we need to start having more specialized people in those roles.
Yeah, you make a really good point. You make several really good points in that, Adam. And for those of you who are newer, I mean, it was only maybe 6 years ago that we brought building inspection under the Development Services Department. And the thought behind that, and I supported it, was inspection used to be under Public Works. And while, inspection is an integral part of development. I mean, the idea that you'd have people out there talking to potential companies, oh, we'd love to have you. You can build this in the industrial park. It's great. And then you'd have the people who are going to have to be doing the reviewing of plans and approving them and inspecting them are in another office, and they come along later and say, they can't build it like that. So the thought of inspections being under the same umbrella with planning and zoning and economic development made sense. I still think it does, but it does put a lot on one person's plate. And I think you probably will see more cities in the future breaking off the economic development piece with the thought that person can, quite frankly, raise his or her own salary by being able to dedicate themselves 100% to bringing business here and helping them expand and grow here without having to worry about all the other things, the day-to-day office stuff that a director has. But you don't see much of that yet, probably for a variety of reasons, including financial.
Ken, I had a question.
Thanks. Steve, Josh's position has been vacant for 6 months, correct?
Yeah,
I think you
almost.
mentioned somewhere, I read that.
Since mid-March, yeah.
Is there any potential candidates currently for this position?
Well, I don't want to talk a lot about specifics at this point. I mean, I think I said at the last meeting, we've been through 2 rounds ourselves. The first one produced about 20 applications. We interviewed 4. One person was a really good candidate, turned us down for personal reasons. And we didn't move on from there. And then the second time around, we got virtually nothing. It's almost like we wore out the market. Even though we advertised in more places the second time, we still didn't get anything. Now we're using GovHR, a recruiting firm that does professional level recruiting for department head types in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, surrounding areas. So far, they've given us 3 candidates. The deadline is Tuesday, right after Labor Day. So I'll be sitting down with our HR director at that point. I haven't looked super close at them. There's nobody that shines off the map initially, but, I'm wondering if I'm sitting in the room on Tuesday with our HR director and we don't have any others and we look at these and we, are wondering what we do. I'm not sure where we go next. I don't want to, I'm not saying anything negative about the 3 people, but I would like to have had more than 3 people, just numerically, to have come into the process. There are just not a lot of folks out there. It's amazing. And it's, I'm not going to go off on too bad a tangent here, but we've been through this at director level with HR director, finance director, development services director, and other positions. We've been at it with lower level positions where we've gotten maybe a third at the most of the applications that we've gotten in the past. So it's just a tough time.
And just, Bill, follow up. Yeah, I understand the situation. But how long do we wait before we make a decision to maybe split the duties between an economic development person and a developmental services person? Do we wait another 6 months and our laundry list gets longer and we fall farther behind other cities? I guess sooner or later we have to make a decision. The city has to make a decision. The council has to make a decision. Currently, the way the job description is advertised, we're just not getting any candidates at all. So do we go a different direction and see what happens there? Is it going to be the same thing? Could be. I don't know. But I guess, the council will have to make a decision. We'll have to try something else. If this isn't working, obviously, we need to try something else. And otherwise, we're just stuck in a rut.
I agree with you for a number of reasons. I mean, I think, by this time next week, there'll have to be some serious conversations. They'll be coming back to the council, obviously, about where we're at. I have to do a deeper dive on the candidates that they've thrown at us. They'll probably throw a few more at us yet this week. But, Stephen Wiley, our city planner, is doing an amazing job. Dan Kinnick, our public works director, Jennifer Selensky, our finance director. We're trying to keep the balls spinning and in the air with these different development projects. And, we're wearing out too. So we know that this can't continue indefinitely. And maybe that'll be a time where we do talk with the council about another model. And I do think back to the conversation I was alluding to earlier, where we had somebody who was strong in economic development, but not so strong in other areas. That almost makes us think, is there another way to play the game? But I definitely want to sit it out until next week, see what comes to the finish line from GovHR, look closer at the ones we've received to date. And then, we can't, we're at the 6-month mark. You make a good point. We don't have a leader per se doing this job on a regular basis, and we need one.
Yeah. Thank you. I would just be curious from Marshfield Utilities standpoint. Economic development is obviously important to utilities. What's your opinion on the need for an economic development position? I mean, I've heard utilities sometimes have it. I just would like to get another perspective.
Go off the cuff here. So, obviously economic development is very important to the utilities. I mean, that's part of the reason we help support the 205 fund, which is the body overseas. I think, anytime there's economic development, we can increase our sales, we can, spread out or delay rate increases. So those are the things that we see as a positive from economic development. As far as models that I've seen out there, definitely in the IOU, if you go into the We Energies Alliance, things like that, you go to their websites, you'll see where they have resources that are devoted to economic development, and there are models there where they're supporting it. So I think there's, as we think about creative solutions, there's a possibility that maybe the utilities is part of that solution in some capacity.
Anybody else?
If not, I'd just like to summarize for my part, going back to the questions that have been raised by Ken and by Adam. I mean, I think that, again, we've received a few applications. I expect we'll receive at least a couple more. I think we see what things look like when it all shakes out next week, and then decide if we have people that we want to interview. But regardless, I think Adam said it well before. I mean, even going down the road, no matter how this turns out, I think we may want to take a look and see if the model is a long-term one that we want to keep or adjust.
If I could, I would like to see this just be something maybe we bring back. Not saying next month, maybe obviously give us an update next month on the position being filled, but I think maybe this is something that every couple months or every few months, we have a conversation about.
Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda, it's kind of a sad day. It says here that Gordon Edwards is going to be leaving us, and I feel like I've failed because we don't have a Costco on the south side yet, Gordon. So I tried. I mean, it's just can't get it done. But thank you very much for your insights and your input, and very much appreciate your help on this committee. Anybody else? All right. Anything you wanted to add?
No, I just want to thank Gordon for your service. I know you're a very busy person. You've had a lot going on at the clinic during your time here, and I just want to take time to thank you for being part of the EDB and wish you all the best as you move on.
Yes.
So I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to help serve Peter. You know, and Bill, I am 10 minutes from a Costco in terms of my home. That was a criteria. I wish I could have been there today. The movers were about 45 minutes longer than I needed to get there. So this is actually my last day in Marshfield. So appreciate it. Keep up the good work. Costco on the south side would be fantastic. Lake on the west side would be even better. And I'm hopeful on the restaurant development bill too, on what that could mean for the city as well here on Central.
Excellent. Appreciate your help along the way. Thank you. All right. Updates. Marketing industrial land bought from UW. Anything else to add?
Yeah, I feel like I've been parked here for a while. Everybody okay with me still standing here?
I would have just sat down up here.
I feel like I'm giving a lecture at a university here all of a sudden. Yeah, just to verify, because it's still fairly fresh, but we did acquire the land from UW, so we do have the 123 acres for more industrial development on the east side of Yellowstone Industrial Park, TIF District 12. I think we mentioned earlier, really thankful to Karen for her efforts, and other people, Nick obviously being a part of it, Stephen Wiley, Dan Kinect, in getting us to be eligible and involved in the Certified Sites program. We're excited about that. I'll just walk through. We did have a permit pulled. I was notified by Natalie and Pat Kilty, our building official, one new single-family home in Daniel subdivision on South Cypress just came in. So we are still, you know, it's not as fast as we'd all hoped, but still moving along out there in Daniels. I mentioned the subdivision at 21st and Washington that the council voted against, but like I mentioned, they had a lot of reasons, and I think we just need to, you know, decide where we're heading next in the wake of that. What type of projects or activities we're looking for. Can I just keep rolling here?
Yeah.
Am I on a roll?
Please do.
The Marshfield Mall, there's a special council meeting on Tuesday at 6 o'clock here, in which a final version of the development agreement will be before the council regarding the mall project. I think we've all heard that all indications are that they're moving forward, and certainly a lot of people in the community are excited about the other retailers that look like they're going to be coming to town. And again, I said this at the last meeting, hopefully that will keep more people here on weekends. I'm one who's been in Wausau more times than I'd want to be because of some of the stores they have, and that will spend money and spend time in this community. It'll be good for everyone, hopefully. The Development Services Director Recruitment, I already mentioned, we've got a few candidates, looking for a few more yet from our recruiter, see what they look like, see what quality they have. Haven't really looked at it that close yet until the deadline passes, and then we'll see what it adds up to and see if we want to move forward with interviews or we want to come back to the council and discuss other options as to where we go next. And then F isn't really mine, so I can actually sit down, I think, at this point.
Report on ongoing projects and activities.
I leave that to anybody else. I mean, I don't personally have anything in mind when I put that. I know that maybe Bill or somebody else has anything they want to touch on. I know we've talked about, you know, winter sports and those kind of things, but I just put that down as kind of a catch-all.
Yes, actually, I can give an update on the winter sports facility. It is still alive and kicking and trying to move forward. The group that's doing the work towards that is actually had some reasonable success in trying to find large donors as a basis for moving the project forward. So kind of excited about that. Maybe a change of venue there. We'll see what happens. But that actually appears to be slowly moving forward and need to move forward. Go ahead, Matt. You're up next anyway, so you might as well just yeah.
Yeah, Bill, I just wanted to catch up with you a little bit. I actually just met with Steve and Lois to talk about possible funding, additional funding models for the winter sports complex. So we can rally the troops here again and kind of keep that ball rolling. Want me to jump into a general update?
Please do.
Okay, sounds good. I have a brief update here. Maple Fall Fest is only about 2.5 weeks away. So I see a couple of ladies over here that will be there. Yeah, we'll be serving some great food, and Natalie's volunteering. So and hopefully I need some more volunteers. Lois, we're going to sign you up, okay? So that's coming together. I did lose my staff member, and commuting got her, as we discussed earlier. So she was commuting from Rome. So staff member Haley let go. So I'm struggling trying to find someone to help. So this will be my first year running Fall Fest. So I'll probably be leaning on partners a lot, trying to get some more help. I know Parks and Rec department has always been great, and feeling confident about it. It's just going to be a little crazier this year, but we'll make her work, and people enjoy and love Fall Fest. And we're bringing a lot of visitors here. We had some strong marketing campaigns for the Fair and Hub Data Days, social media contests. I always drive a lot of people. We usually get around 1,500 to 2,000 people to enter a contest. We give away some free tickets to different things. I know the monster fire truck at the Hub Data Days was quite the social media spectacle, and we're talking with them about maybe some other events and activities to tie in for things. Working on trying to get a strategic planning session later this year. It's been a few years since we've done that for Visit Marshfield. So again, I'll open invitations to people in this group and room that would like to be involved when we get that on the books. Also starting visitor guide planning. We usually get that wrapped up around Thanksgiving and then get it printed in December. So we're starting some article content. We just did a photo shoot about a week and a half ago. Got a lot of dining, shopping, and also some outdoor activities, biking and hiking. So some new fresh content and material. It's always good to have images. We did just surpass the 25,000 Facebook follower a few days ago. So we have 25,012 followers. So about 5,000 more than people live here. Yeah, that's an update. Any questions anybody have? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I kind of skipped over the discuss economic needs of the committee by community. Do we have input into that? And then I'll get back to Karen in a minute. So thoughts or discussion items for needs of the community at this point? All I had written down was housing. So I think we've talked about that a little bit today already so far. So otherwise, Karen, you want to give your update?
The only thing I was going to say is that I think this is just a continuation of the conversation from the last time in which I said fine dining. There
you go. That works too. Yeah.
Okay, I don't have a lot to add other than between Wood County and the state and others, we're looking at stronger focus on entrepreneurial development. You know, what are the gaps? What are we missing? What things can we be doing together? So I think you're going to see more things rolling out on that. It's good that everybody's got that focus. But I think all of us working together, we can identify what's already in place, what we need, and things like that. Been a lot of ribbon cuttings again, so it's good because there's new businesses opening. Love to see that. Matter of fact, one we had yesterday at North Side Cycle, his girlfriend made all of the food that was there, and it was amazing. And I'm like, you should be a caterer. She goes, yeah, I'm kind of thinking about that. And I said, come see me. We'll see what we can do. So anyway, it's amazing how you find these people just in kind of odd places that are doing passionate things and everything. So anyway, I think there's going to be a lot more on that. We've been really busy with this RFI, but we've also had some interest in the Second Street corridor. So I think the quicker we can move some things forward there and do things like that, that would be great. So.
talk about timing. I see Nikki coming on the screen right now. We're doing updates, and it's your turn.
Oh, I knew that, Bill. I've been here listening to everything.
Okay.
So updates on what's going on in the parks and then also Wenzel Family Plaza. We've made it to September, so we wrapped up everything that we normally do for the most part at the Wenzel Family Plaza. We did have a couple rain situations on Friday nights, and so we do still have one rescheduled show. That's Amelia Ford Band, and she's able to do that next Friday, which we are actually coinciding with a suicide awareness event. So we still have one show left in the plaza. We had to move 2 weeks ago one of our bands indoors, which was kind of a fun process to see how our indoor facility works. And we actually chose the Drendel Room in the 2nd Street Community Center. And it was a great dry run. We set up the room and really transformed it, I believe. Obviously, it was probably our slowest attended event for Friday night, but it definitely showed us that we could probably host music indoors. And so that's the conversation that we're going to continue to have. Justin and I have thrown around a couple of ideas of continuing the Hub City Concert Series in the winter months, maybe in a different way. So those are some ideas that were built from actually having to move indoors. So that's exciting news. We, made lemonade out of lemons. And I think it worked well. But we are slowing down with the summer activities. Like I said, one more Friday night concert series happening on the 9th. I would say that, as I said last month or the month before, we definitely saw an increase of attendance at the Hub City Concert Series, which is great to see. It really helps that we have more well-known names or different bands coming from various areas from New York, Minnesota, southern Wisconsin, and then central Wisconsin as well. And so it's really exciting to see that keep building. I think I would say an average attendance count would be around the 300 mark. And that's really exciting. So we keep growing. We're still going to hopefully keep doing that. We want to get that 400 block number, even though we are smaller. And I think that we could really get there. So feeling well that it's September, taking a little bit of a deep breath. We did have really well attendance for the most part on the days that were nice, Saturdays for yoga, and we continue to, do rentals. And that's something now that we fall under the Parks and Rec model, we're seeing a lot more rentals for the Wenzel Family Plaza. So that is really, really good. And we also finished up Wild Wednesdays and all of our zoo events as well that I partnered with Sarah, our zoo manager, on. So looking forward, we do have the fall and winter events coming up. I'm partnering still very closely with Main Street Marshfield, and we're trying to expand the holiday weeks that Main Street kind of already has in place, but I worked with them on. So Halloween has expanded now to another luminary hike at Weber Park that we're working on, and then also spooky zoo tours at Wildwood Zoo. So we're really trying to expand and use the parks. I know that Wildwood is used, but quite a bit for different things because it is such a great location. And so working with Sarah on just expanding more programming, mostly during those fall and winter months. So that's going to be, we have from the 20th of October to the 29th, something going on, pumpkin painting in the plaza and, different things that we're doing with Main Street. And then looking ahead to the end of November, we're really focusing on, mostly with economic development, the local shopping. And so Small Business Saturday is really big. Main Street Marshfield has done, a really good job of building that program up in our downtown, and we're just going to keep adding to it. So on the 26th, we will have our Reindeer Day, which is moved up. Usually it is the first week of December, but we really want to try to bring people downtown so they're shopping downtown on that Saturday. And so we will have the reindeer, the visit from Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus, as well as our tree lighting. The last few years we've done it, either I've done it and there wasn't an event to it, and most of that had to do with COVID. So we're actually going to try to make that an event this year. So that will all be on the 26th. So we're just switching gears and trying to get more things in more of our parks, as well as keep building up Wenzel Family Plaza. So I think the summer went really well, and I'm looking forward to fall and winter. I can take any questions.
So it looked to me like when I drive by there's a lot of people using the water feature. Are you getting a good number of events occurring at the plaza? Are you doing more than you did last year?
We have more rentals this year, and we really haven't built so much on new programming, but really sustaining what we have. That's something we're going to look forward to in the next year. The transition to Parks and Rec was quite a bit this year. It's a new position for me, and to try to get both of those positions together, we weren't able to add more programming, but we definitely want to look at that for next year, adding more things downtown. And I think that's really doable. So any suggestions of what people want to see, I'll definitely take them, but we do have bigger plans for next year. And thankfully the water fountain we had zero problems with it after the install. So knock on wood that it continues to happen. And people, like you said, Bill, as you drive by, people are still utilizing it. This week has been obviously very busy with Van de Hey being closed down. So we'll keep it open until after Labor Day. And yeah, the plaza has a lot of action going on even during its passive times, which is great to see.
Good. Other questions? Ed?
Nikki, can you update us on restrooms for the Wenzel Family Plaza?
Well, we did. Common Council decided to move up the bathroom plans to 2023, and there are definite discussions going on. The biggest thing is where to put it, how to do it, and those discussions are happening. And it is our plan to hopefully see some movement in that in the next several months, because we're hoping to see something at least started in 2023. And maybe Steve can speak to that a little bit more, but it's in the works, so.
Yeah, thanks, Nikki. There have been staff level conversations. I've been involved in a couple of them, and it's just a matter of where the best location is and how to make that work right. I think the Board of Public Works will be seeing this, I would think, sometime soon as plans start to come together. But the full steam ahead to construct during 2023 is the plan as I stand here right now.
All right. Anybody, Nick, did you want to say anything along the way?
Just on two items, I guess one on our building projects coming together. We're starting on the garage portion right now, so we're putting up steel and precast panels, so things are moving forward there. And then the second thing I just wanted to highlight a little bit, I guess, the project that we're working on that'll be coming out here shortly is electric vehicle charging stations. We're working on a partnership with a private dealership here in town, working with city staff on figuring out locations for those. So that'll be coming shortly.
Excellent. Ashley, we're going to throw you to the wolves here. Actually, we had lots of questions for you earlier. You weren't here. So now that you're here, could you give us an update on the world of real estate right now? Yeah, for those who aren't here, she just walked in the door, so yeah.
All right, sorry, but I did. So the world of real estate, it is still kind of the same history of the lack of inventory. We're still kind of running anywhere from 15 to 20 homes available. As far as the subdivision, we're kind of in the same pattern that we're always in, and it's the same available lots. If you drive through recently, you can see that there are 2 that I believe are completed. I'm not sure what their statuses are at this point in time. Those are 2 spec homes. And the custom home is looking fantastic. If you haven't drove through there lately, getting a good amount of attention, which has prompted people to call and ask if they're available, those types of things. As far as the real estate world in general, just got back from a convention, kind of talking about that, talking about the leveling out of prices. The whole discussion of this looking like 08 is not what will happen, although people like to say that. They think that numbers will look more like 2019, which was still a very good time in the real estate market. I think we needed to level out in some fashion. You know, people paying $50,000 to $100,000 over asking is not the most ideal situation. But it has stayed steady. And I mean, there's still, when we get a decent house on the market, it's still like you have 1 week to look at it and all offers need to be reviewed. And most of them are still getting, 6 to 8 offers. It's kind of in the market of, if you've been on the market for 3 weeks and you don't have an offer, then now we're finally seeing price reduction. As far as the subdivision too, I mean, right, there's some changes as far as materials. Probably can't build for what you could have built for a year ago. So it might have be holding some people back a little bit, but we still have the guidelines in place for the subdivision as to when they have to be completed. So the hope was that we would see some start going in the ground before fall, as far as the spec home.
All right. Any questions for Ashley? Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anybody has observations? Otherwise, we might be done early here. All right. Suggested future items for agenda, if anybody has any. I think we had a couple items here for already today. Anything else anybody wants to add? Otherwise, next meeting time is Thursday, October 7th. So how does that look for everybody? It says October 6th on here, and it is the 6th. Looking good for me. Everybody else good? All right. Otherwise, I would need a motion to adjourn. I have a motion to adjourn, and Paul looks like he's determined to make a second. So there we have it. So thank you, everybody, for coming today.